Hello, everybody, and welcome to Greet the Week. This is Jan Moray, and I'm here with my co-host, Mona Duncan. And we have a few other guests on the line with us today, and we welcome our guests who are here to listen in. And today, our topic is from one fellow struggler to another. We're talking about habits. So Mona, help us to talk about our habits and which ones are good ones, which ones we want to keep, which ones we want to get rid of. What's going on?
Well, the thing of it is that we all have habits, but if they're good habits, we don't really think about them that much. It's the bad habits that we want to do something about, and then we find that they really are a habit,
meaning that hard to get rid of.
whether it's an attitude or a thought or an action or anything like that. And so I thought, well, today we would just discuss some ways, not that one size fits all, but some things to think about that may help us to overcome a habit that we don't want and or to strengthen a habit that we do want. And so
yeah, I have been reading quite a bit about habits. I've been very interested in them. And the thing is that our brain is kind of lazy, and it wants us to create habits because then it doesn't have to think so much. But the thing is, we have to make sure that the habits that we're creating are ones that we want, and not, like going by the cookie jar and always grabbing a cookie every time we go by there. That's not such a good habit to have.
Right. So the bad news is that bad habits take on a life of their own, and they can seem to be almost impossible.
Right.
The news is old habits can be broken. And the even better news is that all habits are formed by routine.
Correct. Right.
It's formed by routine. It's either a routine doing it that we form the habit. It's a routine stopping that we uninform the habit or we unform the habit. And so here's the formula for it. If you want to write it down, it is belief, what you believe, plus the environment times repetition equals habit. And we will not, even if it's picking up that, going in for a cookie every time we pass the cookie jar, if it's something as trivial as that, there's a belief that's going with it that, I believe that cookie will give me a spur of energy or something. And it's that belief plus the environment, meaning that cookie jar is always there and it's always available. The belief of it, the environment of it is there and it's available, and then the repetition of doing it again and again and again, it becomes a habit.
It does. And because when you're trying to break those habits, it's like it's that time I'm walking by there. Maybe even after you move the cookie jar for a little while, you're still going to remember that cookie jar was there and still want to reach for the cookie. So it takes a while to erase that, and so that you don't think about it anymore.
Right. So either or, if it's a habit we're wanting to break or one that we're wanting to form, the first thing is to know who you are, know what you want, and to actually declare that. Declare it to yourself, declare it to someone else. This is something I'm going to do. This is something I am wanting to break. This is something that I'm wanting to overcome. Make a declaration for it. And then if someone, reminds you of it, instead of getting upset with them, I thought you was going to do this or not do that. Instead of getting upset with them, you said, thank you for reminding me. Thank you, because that is my intention. We've got to go back with what our intention is. And then we always, start by starting, and we start by declaring it. And then we start by, all of life abhors a vacuum. And so if we do not plant something, something's going to grow.
Right. So maybe you want to have something grow that you want, right?
Exactly. So focus on whatever it is. If you constantly think about, I'm not doing this, not doing that, not doing something else, that's what you're drawn toward. It's like that, that law of attraction. Right. You're attracted to it because you're constantly focusing on it.
Yeah, you are putting your thoughts into that. You are focusing on it.
And so you start by stopping, or you stop by starting to tell yourself, oh, no, I'm not thinking about that anymore. I'm dismissing that thought. I'm dismissing that. Um,
They're still there.
yeah. Another thing is to fill your life with choices. The more choices we have, the more options we have. And so instead of having that cookie jar there, what about putting apples there? or a little something to pick up and read that would encourage you to, that would go into that routine. And then making those quality choices by asking questions, talking to yourself. Have you ever talked to yourself?
All the time.
What is it that I want? What is it that I don't want? Really begin to talking to yourself. You're wanting to, what are you doing to get it? This sounds like reality therapy questions, choice theory questions. Is it helping? Is it hurting? But ask yourself those questions, but not only ask yourself the questions, go ahead and give yourself the answers. Because our thoughts always are preceding that habit that we, even though it seems like it's taken on a life of its own. Right. So I made up a little, you can see this.
Okay, yes, we can see it.
Can you see that? Okay. Mm-hmm. So our thoughts, we're always thinking. I don't know that we can not think. So our thoughts, if it's a bad habit or something, sometimes we let those thoughts attack ourselves. Like we'll think, oh, I'm just getting too many cookies here, and and then our thoughts begin to weaken ourselves. That, well, I just don't have the willpower to say no. So the third thing is we have to begin to realize the fact that we can prove ourselves wrong. That I do have the willpower. And so here's some little thoughts that I put down in talking to yourself. Well, what if I could? What if I could begin to sow that down? What if I could quit this? What if I could begin this? And then, don't make it so laborious. Don't make it so heavy. Don't make it so grave. Maybe so, maybe no. Maybe I can accomplish this. Maybe I can't. And then also, well, I'll give time. Have you ever tried to do something and you couldn't do it? I mean, you kind of have to build some muscle sometime before you can pick something up or put something down.
Yeah. Well, and building your muscle is like creating that habit.
It is.
For your muscle in order to be able to lift heavier and heavier weights.
Yeah, and that's beginning to build it. And beginning to lose. It's also another muscle, but then to give yourself permission to change. How often do we say, I want this or I don't want this, but then we don't give our permission to make different choices.
Yeah.
It's like we have to have someone else's permission. Well, yours is the most important one.
Right, because we're the hardest on ourselves, too.
Right. Right. And back to that, the little thing, giving time. Well, I'm not doing this. I wasn't consistent with this yesterday, but today's another day.
Right. Right. And not to beat yourself up about not being able to keep the habit or break the habit the day before. It's like, okay, today's another day. Let's not focus on the failure. Let's not focus on not being able to do what we want to do, and focus on, okay, let me start over, and I'm going to make it one day in a row today.
Mm-hmm. And so, another key there in looking at habits and so forth is determine who you really are. Because we establish who we are pretty much by establishing who we are not.
Right. Yeah. And then you still don't know who you are, right?
Well, the thing of it is, it involves the old ego. And, the ego, I've been doing a lot of studying on the ego lately, that the ego is what we've made up to ourselves as to who we are. And it can be very fragile. And if we realize that, I have a stronger spirit than that. I am a stronger person than that flimsy little ego, that we can overcome so many things. So many things. Thing of it is, and it's always going back to the theory of our axle, our car, looking at the axle. So here again, I've shown this before. I'm going to show you. This is my diagram of the car. If I got it too far up? Yeah. Okay. So the front two wheels are the thinking wheels, the doing wheels, the thoughts we think and the actions we take. The back two wheels are the feelings wheel, which includes the emotional feelings as well as the physiology feelings. Mm-hmm. And we are in the driver's seat. And everything we do affects directly these first two wheels. And so it indirectly affects the physiology and affects the emotions and our emotions, our attitudes. So just for a minute, just right where you are, whatever you're thinking about, whatever you're not thinking about, if you would just do a little exercise, just literally look up. If you're sitting in a house, well, look up at the corners in the room, the ones right in front of you. Look up and then look over to the other one. And scan your body. There has been a little lightening of spirit there. Because the fact of the matter is, now here, this is one of those irony things, that we cannot look down while looking up.
Mona.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
The diagram that you just showed, could you show it again, please, for a second?
Yes, I certainly will.
What is the U in the middle?
That's the driver's seat. Because it's a one-passenger car.
Well, you got the steering wheel over to the left and the driver's seat in the middle.
Well, see, look at it 3D. Well, anyway, that's okay. I need to make some corrections there, huh, Jerry?
Well, all right. As long as I know it's the driver's seat, I got it then.
It's the driver's seat because there's 8+ billion of us on planet Earth, but every one of us is driving our own individual car. And they may be in front of us and behind us and everywhere else, but we're the one that's in control of ours.
All right.
If we are in control of it.
I was confused. I thought maybe it stood for something else. Okay.
No, that's the driver's seat. That's where we are. That's where we are. And so the thoughts and so forth can begin to weaken, and we can begin to weaken our emotions. And as we strengthen them, I worked with a client last week, and she was really upset that a lot of things had happened. She just had the stack attack of events that had happened to her. And I won't go into all of that, but she made the comment. She said, and here it is, the Lenten season, and my whole focus has been to be on kindness. And I told her, I said, well, maybe it still is for it to be on kindness, but to be kind to you. Do we know what's happening? Am I hearing things?
Talking, Mona. I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you. But she was just really upset with herself because there had been so many things that had happened. She just had a stack attack of sickness and just, how things happen. And anyway, and she was so sad because she was trying to keep looking up. And I told her, you cannot look down when you're looking up. And so even though that's not to discount where we are, that's the beautiful thing of it. It's not to say I'm not in the midst of a stack attack. It's not to say I'm not in the midst of really difficult circumstances. It's to say that I can make it to the other side of the road. It's to know the fact that that we have, it's back to this little thing. It's back to proving ourselves wrong. That we have thought, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Well, maybe I can. Maybe so, maybe no. Maybe I won't be as strong tomorrow as I am 10 weeks from now. Maybe I won't be as thin tomorrow as I will be 6 months from now. But whatever it is, maybe I won't be as well balanced as I am now. And then we begin to prove ourselves wrong in those thoughts that we were attacking ourselves. Because if we don't plant something in that void, it will automatically take care of itself. And often what it takes care of by itself is not what we're wanting.
Or at least take a look at it and make that decision later on and see what's growing in there and say, okay, is this really what I want here? Or do I need to change it to something else?
Exactly, just like the weeds in my yard.
Well, exactly what I was thinking of. We've been cutting down a bunch of trees in our yard, and in some cases, we've had some nice plants take their place because they're now getting a lot more sunshine, and I'm getting some flowering trees, and I like those. But every once in a while, there's a few plants that grow so like they're kind of thorny, and I'm going, I don't know if I want these thorny bushes here. They're not roses, so I get rid of the thorny bushes. But that applies to our life, just like what you say, is if we don't put something there, something will grow.
Right, and it's not the yard's fault for something growing. That's the part of life. And so if we have allowed something to grow there, whether it's a thought, an attitude, a habit, whatever, it really is our fault because we did allow that to happen by not being proactive. And it is being proactive. It is thinking it through, and it's making the decision. And I have decided that, you know what, dandelions are just okay.
They are. I'm leaving the dandelions in my yard because they do have a pretty yellow flower, and I kind of like that little fuzzy thing that they have.
And it makes so many more. I mean, it's so terrific.
It really does.
But there have been a couple of other little weeds that I've decided I'm just going to let that be a ground cover.
Right.
And the beautiful thing is that dandelion, you can make dandelion tea out of it. I've got some flakes in there that I still have left over from last season. And it's really good for the heart.
That's true. And some of the bad habits, or so-called bad habits that we create, there can be some good in them too. They can lead us someplace that we may not have gone to if we hadn't had gone down there.
Everything is a learning experience.
Yeah.
Everything in life. Everything. I'm just seeing that more and more and more as I go along. But begin to look at how we can make some changes and shift it slowly rather than, if you get in your car, you're wasting so much energy. You're wasting so much gasoline energy type. If you get in there and you just push down on that feed and the gas and take off, Whereas we may start off going that whatever your habit is, whether it's the stopping or the starting, see it as for the long run so that you don't expend all of your energy right up front and then give up.
So you mean so that we continue with the habit so that we don't give up too early on creating the habit? Is that
on creating the habit or dismissing the habit,
whichever way. Yeah.
Start off slowly. There's even some little apps that you can put in your vehicle that will let you know if you're accelerating too fast or braking too abruptly. And it will help even your car insurance to go down. Don't listen to their guidelines. Well, the same thing is we can apply that to our feelings, to our emotions, to our health, to if we're speaking up too much, if we're not being kind, we can let that little indicator, on the car things will let you know that, or they'll send you an email saying, you've been accelerating too fast. If we'll just allow that, if we'll just take it to heart, take it seriously. Many, many times, if we'll just listen to our own self, our higher self is always talking to us.
Right. Sometimes we have a hard time listening to that one, right?
Just listen to it. Just listen to it. So decide and speak out loud to yourself and others. Once you establish who you are, whether you're a lazy person, then take action to not be a lazy person. And even if it's just a small thing, give yourself an atta-girl, an atta-boy.
Yeah.
You know, instead of attacking you, be kind to you. And if you ascertain by listening and determining who you are, if you ascertain that you're a grump, well, then guess what? That automatically has got given you a handle. Oh, I'm a grump. Well, okay, I can become less grumpy.
Right.
We have to have something that we can hang on to, something that we can visualize, something that we can see.
Charlotte had an interesting comment that she put in the chat here. She says, I think it also has to include our perspective or paradigm of the habit to change. For example, I have dieted for ages. Diet has the word die in it. I don't want to die prematurely, so I changed to becoming a healthier eater. Changed my picture, or as Glasser will say, my quality world picture. So yeah, so how do you look at something? Are you looking at something? Because the diet does have a bad connotation in there that I'm restricting the food that I can eat. But if I change it around to I want to be healthier, and I know that what I eat affects how I feel, and so I want to feel good, so I'm going to make sure I eat things that are going to help me to feel good.
Exactly. And that's just like that saying, you know, well, it's to die for.
Yeah,
I determined, you know what? It is not to die for. I don't care how luscious it is, how wonderful it is, it is not to die for.
Yeah, right.
And it may be good, yes, but what's the long run? What's the long run? Because life is getting longer.
Well, I think that's
People are living a lot longer, and life is too short to not enjoy it, but it's also too long to not doing it by the habits we have.
Right. And so then to put your focus to think of the future as well, instead of just focusing on, oh, how delicious that looks, and I'm going to eat it right now, but to think of, okay, how's that going to affect me? If I have one luscious dessert to die for, it's not going to make me die. But if I make a habit of eating all these luscious desserts every day, then sooner or later I'm going to see the ill effects of that decision. So to draw that balance with what do I want right now and what do I need right now versus what's going to help me in the long run, so I can enjoy those later years.
Right, and do it healthily and have good mentality and everything.
Tudi uradna Moskva je vnovič zanikala vmešavanje v ameriške volitve.
Okay. And change doesn't have to take forever. You know, we change by changing. We change by changing our thoughts. We change by changing our pattern, changing our routine, changing our environment.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes it's just walking outside. Sometimes it's just getting a glass of water that can spur a small change.
Yeah.
Have you ever been thinking about something and, you know, then that thought is gone? Well, change your mind. And the thought will eventually, well, no reason to keep hounding her. She's not listening.
Yeah.
Have you ever...
That's what the thing is behind the time out, you know, move you to a different environment so that you're not being reminded of the things that upset you and the things that you don't enjoy. I mean, that goes with changing habits too. I mean, like I know with addictions, they have the sober house where you're going away from your normal house because there's so many things in the normal place where you were living that remind you of the habit, but getting away from it and starting anew and hopefully creating better habits instead of going back to your old habit. I think you touched on environment very early in today about how that has a big effect on the environment. I mean, on your habit as well.
It does indeed. And it's always looking at the fact that what is the new normal? You know, because if something does happen, if you have a broken leg, well, then you need something to help that broken leg to heal. But in the meantime, there's a different mode there. And so it's being okay. It's realizing that things are changing and go with a new normal.
Yeah.
And whenever things begin to change, I never shall forget, we went on a vacation, and when we came back, I mean, our whole community was different. Well, they put in a new highway, but You think, well, no, they did not put the new highway in the 2 weeks we were gone. But I'm telling you what, they disrupted everything in its path for the 2 weeks we were gone. And they knocked down and they broadened the road, and it was but now, and they took a couple of turns out, made a straight, took a couple of turns out, and there was months and months and months of slow driving and being held up by traffic and so forth. But now I can't even remember what it was like before.
Yes, yes. And you probably were doing that for years, for decades.
Yes. The thing of it is that we have this ability to change, to adapt. The plasticity in our mind, and it's available. And so it's knowing that and embracing that and being okay with that we can change.
Yeah. And as Nancy said in the chat, start small. And that is so important. We always want to make it go from here to here. We want to go to the end point, and it's just difficult to make that stick. But if you're making little bitty changes and doing little by little, as long as you're making sure you're making progress, I think starting small is so good.
Right, yeah. And then driving on the other side of the road. Sometimes we need to look at things a little differently to get a different perspective. Of course, that goes in relationships. If we can begin to look at a situation from someone else's point of view, not that we can ever see it from their point of view, but at least just the fact that we're giving some credence to the fact that you have a different point of view can improve a relationship tremendously. If the habit that we want to break is to be kinder, to be nicer, to relate better. It's just for trying to understand.
Well, and that goes with allowing feedback and taking it for what it's worth. That somebody's really trying to help you when they provide feedback, because you do see it from your point of view, and a lot of times you totally miss how it's perceived by others, and to have someone let you in on that and tell you can be helpful.
Right. And always in any kind of a habit, especially one that you're wanting to break and you cannot, go back to it occasionally, be harsh on your behavior, but be gentle on you.
Yeah.
Be harsh on your behavior. You could, I'm a better person than that. I can take the higher road than that. But be gentle on you. Be gentle on you.
Yeah. And that goes with anything, even with other people. Be harsh on the behavior, but not on the person.
Exactly.
It's the behavior that's what we're talking about. Doesn't mean that anyone's a bad person or they're failing or there's anything wrong with them. It's just that I'm finding that offensive, or you might want to rethink how others are looking at that. Just you may want to just think about it.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to ego, is the fact that ego can always be upset.
Yeah.
But spirit can't. It's just, it's even keel. And so be harsh on behavior, but gentle on the person, gentle on the personality of the person, gentle on the being of the person, whether that's you or someone else. And realizing that everything in life, positive and negative, is a life lesson.
Yeah.
But we have to look at that lesson, and are we going to allow it to improve us or to mar us? Because we do have that choice.
We do. Yeah.
We do. When we realize how many choices that we have and begin to take ownership of them.
And if you allow that situation to mar you, then you're allowing it to hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
And so experiencing it is bad enough. So don't allow it to affect you the rest of your life.
Right.
But what happened. So now let's move on and see what can I learn something from it? Do I need to change something from it? And let's just keep going.
Yeah. So, on habits, kind of a little reminder that our thoughts are always with us. We always have our thoughts. I don't know that we can not think. So when we allow our thoughts to attack us, either because we're not good enough or because we're, doing something we shouldn't do or whatever, that begins to weaken us physiology, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so we can prove ourselves wrong. And some little catchwords is, what if I could? What if I could do this? What if I could stop that? What if I could? Maybe so, maybe no. Don't give it more weight than it needs. And then I'll give time. Not to waste it, but to use it effectively for our own good.
All right. Those are great words to end up for today. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you again next week.